Connecting. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the July edition of the Southern Fried DNN User Group meeting. We are pleased to be coming to you here from Charlotte, North Carolina, and our lovely location here is inside of the Microsoft campus in Charlotte. Mike Bouchot helps support us here and give us a great place to be. Clint's going to kind of turn around the video there for those of us online so we can see, because we're in a swanky new office boardroom type setup today instead of classroom style. So we kind of feel like we moved up in the world. Air conditioning works better in here. The chairs are more comfortable. It's real nice. They'll come in and give us the cigars in a moment. Tonight we're having really what I would call a summer meeting. We've got folks online, we've got folks here, but we definitely got that attitude of summer. It's a little bit more laid back, a little bit more loose here tonight with not only the things we're going to go through and talk about, but also, I'm sure, our jokes and heckling as we go through. It's Thursday, we're ready for the end of the week, and we're in the middle of summer, so that kind of sets our tone. But a few different things just to mention from DNN community before I then start moving through. Tonight's session, of course, we've titled this Supercharged DNN with our guest speaker, Oliver Hine. We could have Oliver talk about a number of different topics, but tonight I kind of wrestled him into the point of talking to us about his new service, nBrane, and we're going to talk about some of those things. I'll ask a couple of questions and help introduce folks who haven't run across it, but then we're going to have Oliver give us a presentation. Tonight, we always have to mention sponsors, and we have to mention kind of our organization for maybe giveaways and things. Back to that point of not quite being organized. We'll see what we got when we get to the end of the night. I'm not quite sure where we are with this. But talking about community things, I did want to mention that there's been a fair amount of activity with DNN Con. Well, let's hold on a second. Although we are certainly recording, I don't think we're sharing our screen yet. So when David Poindexter, who's not here tonight, starts to run through the video later today or tomorrow, he will get us for remembering to press the record button but forgetting to share the screen to begin with. So at least I caught it by now. Some of the community things, did want to mention that there is a pretty healthy set of conversations going on around DNN Con. There are plans being made and talked about for the next DNN community convention to happen here stateside. And there are still some venue discussions going on to decide exactly where it's going to be and exactly when it's going to be. I don't think it's too soon or too premature to mention that speculatively. There are discussions about having it in Denver and having it in either late January or early February 2017. So as plans for that really formalize, we'll be sure to have folks on to give official word and to talk about it. But if you are a sponsor, if you are a DNN community enthusiast, if you are someone who runs your business and relies on DNN every day, you should start to have these types of community conventions in mind so that you can attend them. There are always training sessions for the first day of a convention. Those are everything from introductory entry-level training sessions for administrators all the way to coding and development sessions. The popular skinning and theming session, of course, is always booked. So wanted to make sure to mention that everyone keeps DNN Con in mind, and as you are reached out to as sponsors and as a community to start weighing in with thoughts and ideas, start racking your brain now, thinking about those so that you'll be ready when the time comes as it continues to plan. Next up, I did want to mention, I asked Clint what else from the community we might mention. I don't have any more information about this yet, but one thing that's been going around is that the DNN Forge seems to be down. So we'll look for some official word and information from folks, see if we can find out some information either about what's going on or when we expect that to get fixed up and returned. Maybe we'll try to post something if we hear back on Twitter or back on the website afterwards. So that's just a note or a notification about that issue. All right, so heading back over to the topic of the evening, we have Oliver Hine joining us. I'll bring up video here in just a moment, but we have Oliver Hine joining us to, again, talk about nBrane. I'll mention that from my perspective, I first learned about some of these ideas of what Oliver was building and what he was working on while at different conventions, and I was already very excited in concept and idea just from what was being worked on. But at the last DNN Con in Baltimore, I sat in on the session that Oliver was running, and I completely geeked out. I think that Sheely and a couple of other guys that were there as well lost their minds and blew their cool, freaking out about how cool this was. And we all got very excited and very pumped. Myself, I took it quickly to a couple of different sites and am very excited about the usage and the things that I'm seeing. So I'm thrilled to bring this to the rest of the DNN community tonight. Oliver's presented at DNN Con Baltimore. He also was over at the DNN Connect. So here we're bringing it over to a recorded session so we can share with everybody else stateside and get the newest information. Oliver, though, before I pass it over to you, I want to kind of start by giving a little bit of an interview with you. I know folks might know you, might know your name from some past activities inside of DNN, but I thought I'd start off with a couple of good questions that I'd like to ask people when we're on. Ready?
Sure. Yep.
All right. Number Pirates or Ninjas?
Sorry, what was that?
Pirates or Ninjas? You got to answer fast, otherwise the robots are coming for you.
I'm not really into sport, so neither.
Oh, no. I'm going to say the Ninjas have sliced you down, and you're out of the running. You couldn't even make a choice on Pirates or Ninjas. They got to you first. All right, so history with DNN. You know, some of my first awareness of who you were and what you were doing came from my discovery of the Administration Suite, the control panel replacement from back in the day with DNN 5 and DNN 6. But I know you'd been in the DNN community well before that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, to begin with, your first introductions to DNN and when you first got involved?
Let's see. The first time I was messing with DNN, I was building a site based on the iBuy spy portal for a local automotive shop, and we were kind of getting ready to launch it. And at the same time, Sean released DNN 1. So after that, kind of just threw away the iBuy spy and have just been focused on DNN ever since. From there, I built a ton of sites. From the automotive shop, went to a local university and managed their whole sites for all their departments, their sports teams. Each had their own portal, and we had cross-portal, page editing, and a whole bunch of other custom modules that really helped give everyone access to just the pages that they were supposed to edit. While there, they wanted the weather displayed on their site, so I created the DNN weather module that was powered by weather.com, and that ran until weather.com removed the free service for the API data. So unfortunately, that module was pretty nice, but it lost its data source, and just haven't had time to revamp it to work on NOAA or a different API.
Several people said they used that weather module too. I remember it.
Yep. They pulled the API, and then it was on a different URL for a few years, and we did a release to move over to that, and then they pulled that URL as well. So yeah.
Now, Will Stroll chimed in and said that his first memory of you was regarding Telerik.
So yeah, after the weather module, I started working on a replacement editor provider. I think it was for DNN 2 at the time, and that was at the local university. They had a lot of issues with people pasting in Word content, and Telerik seemed like, at the time, the best editor for stripping Word content and making it kind of web ready. So we built a provider for that, and a lot of people used it to the point where Telerik took it over and started maintaining the development of it. So then I think DNN like 4 through 6 or something, it was a Telerik provider, and then DNN took it over for support. If you're doing server-side JavaScript, you'd want to vary the cache by portal alias. And then the last option, which is also not possible with any of the other providers, is varying the content by cookie. So if you've got a module that's writing a cookie and then it's varying the content based on that cookie, whether it's a Google analytic tracking cookie or something else, you'd want to make sure that that cookie name is entered here. So the system is generating new versions of that page for anytime it sees that cookie change.
So campaign type of promotions and things like that, if you know they're running, you'd be putting in that name set of cookies there.
Yep. Yep. The CDN network has a very similar configuration. It just has a on-off switch, a URL that's being prefixed to all your static files, and then what type of files that you want enabled. If you've got both products, CDN and output caching, there's a enabled and output caching setting as well. And basically what we do here is by default, without output caching, we can only control the resources that were added with the DNN JavaScript APIs and CSS APIs. Not every module uses those APIs, and then any HTML content that people are inserting into the site, those modules are not using the DNN APIs for insert paths to the image. So if you enable CDN and output caching, when the page is being generated and right before the cache is saved to disk or to memory, we'll do a regular expression rewrite of that HTML, and we'll prefix the CDN URL on every JavaScript CSS file and image in that response. So if you've got CDN and output caching, 100% of your static files, images, and JavaScripts will be served from the CDN. If you don't have output caching enabled, about 70% of the stock files will be requested from the CDN. Hopefully that makes sense. The Webfarm support is just a very simple user interface. The site is not in the Webfarm, so it should only have one node. But it basically just allows you to manage each server that is running the site. It gives you a failure count for how many synchronization events have failed. We've got a failure threshold here, which by default is set at 500 failures within 3 seconds. So basically if the cache starts failing, and when it does fail, when a server goes offline, the amount of synchronization events climbs very rapidly. So this basically allows the server to gracefully take itself offline without affecting performance at all.
Because at that point, it's relying on the one other server or the 3 other servers that are up just fine, and the one that is failing drops itself off of being synced.
Yep, because a failed server that's timing out will start, if you are sending enough requests to it and they're all timing out, it's going to negatively affect performance on the servers that are still up and running that are trying to communicate with it. So we want to detect when it goes offline, and we want to do that without affecting performance of the servers that are still online. yeah, so now if we come over here to the other browser, I'm going to turn on the developer tools. It kind of helps see if the page is cached. My computer's not a fan of everything it's doing right now.
Well, you're showing up just fine.
All right, so if we refresh the page now, we're not logged in. The page shouldn't be cached because we haven't requested it, or maybe I just did. And what we want to do is we want to look at the document type. So by default, if you click on the network tab, you're going to be on all requests, and this is basically every request that DNN is serving right now. So we've got 42 requests that make up this page, and since my computer's not too happy right now, it's taking 8 seconds for that to finish. The one that we want is the HTML, which is the first request. But ever since I found these filters here, I like to just filter to the one I'm looking for. So I'll click Doc and then go look at the headers that are sent back from the server. Basically, the output caching providers will set a cache -key, and I don't see that in this request. So this request was generated by DNN. If we come back, let me just move these around a little bit and refresh the page. It finished this time in 100 milliseconds instead of 8 seconds. So that was a huge improvement. And then you also see here the cache key is being returned as a response header. So this is just telling us that that the page was served from cache. If we need to go and do some debugging, we could take this key and try and find the corresponding file on the disk that maps to this cache key. If we wait another minute or so and refresh this page, it should invalidate and the cache key should go away. The request to the site when page output caching that's probably the quickest way to do it instead of just waiting. If we go back into the performance suite and if we go into the output cache settings, we've got a clear output cache button. So this will go through and it will invalidate all the page output caching on this portal. So now hopefully if we refresh this page again, come back in, we now won't see a cache key because this page was actually the request that generated the cache. But if we refresh the page again really quick and come back into the request, the cache key will be back, and it's letting us know that that page was served from cache. Now, if we go and make a change to the content, hopefully my cache time is not too short where this doesn't work.
We have to edit faster.
Yeah, no, it's just the computer's not having a good time at the moment. I guess that's what I get for working on a Surface.
We're meeting on a Surface. We're fine. It's Surface Brotherhood there.
Right, so I'm just going to refresh this page once more here just to make sure that that the cache is set. And then we're just going to update the content and click Save. Wait for that to finish and refresh. And then if we refresh over here and we're not logged in, we shouldn't see that change because the page is cached and it would need to be invalidated. So yeah, this one's still showing initial content. This one's showing update content. So as a page admin, you kind of need, or a site administrator, if you're installing this on a bunch of client sites, you'd want to let them know that, hey, we just turned on page caching. We set the cache time to 2 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever time you decide. And if if you make a change, and log out, you're not going to see the change for 20 or 30 minutes. If they can't wait, if the amount of time is too long and it's driving them crazy, they would have to go into there's basically 2 places they can do it. The easiest place is in the Performance Suite. The second place is actually in Page Settings. So now if we...
The easiest place is in the Control Panel, but we'll come back to that later.
Yeah, yep. But that's a good intro, to, I guess, maybe switching into the Control Panel. So by default, if you're just using all the default control panels in administration, you're using the nBrane suite, you have it turned on by default, you're going to come into a page, and if you go into cache settings, it's going to look like it's turned off. In this mode right here, we're kind of overriding this none specified, and we're turning on caching on all pages. So when that default all pages box is checked, no matter what this says here, nBrane is still serving the cache content. But let's say this page specifically, you wanted to change the settings or maybe turn it off. Let's say you wanted caching on every page but this one page. The way you would do that with nBrane is you would have to select one of these providers. It doesn't matter which one. And you'd want to set the cache time for this page to 0. And then that'll basically turn off caching on this page. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to turn on for 120 seconds, like are the default settings. And then it'll basically enable the default way to clear cache. So now if we refresh this again just to generate another cache key, come back into page settings. Wait for all these spinning wheels. So now you'll see we have one variation of this page. So DNN is telling you, you've got one variation of this page that's saved in cache. And if you'd like to clear it, these are the only buttons in the application by default to clear the cache. So you'd say, clear this page. The provider's going to go through, clear the cache for that page. Or if you want all pages, you can clear it there. So that would be the way that your page administrators, by default, would have to, manage. I had a few customers where it was just too many clicks, it was just too complicated. So that's where the nBrane Administration Suite kind of helps a bit. So if we go back into host settings and other settings, I already have the control panel installed. So if you go and install the control panel, it will automatically set itself as active. But if for whatever reason you need to change back to the original one, you can do that under host settings, other settings, and then control panel. We'll basically give you the available control panels in the system. So we're just going to turn the nBrane control panel back on, and then we should have a totally different admin experience than the default panel. So let's go back to the home page, and since we're talking about page output caching, we'll just refresh this one more time since 2 minutes is probably just way too short. Make sure that there is a cache key there. And then what we can do here is we've got this little tools panel. If we click that, it's going to come back and tell us that there's one variation of output cache, and then we give the same buttons here. So if you want to clear the variations for this page or all pages or even all sites, if you're a host user, we expose that for you. So you don't have to leave the page. You just click this page. It's going to do a callback, and then it's going to refresh the page, and the cache is invalidated, and it's starting to regenerate from every request. some of the other features of the control panel is it's a left-hand side navigation. So instead of the top, it's really nice on wide screens. Most of the time you've got unused space on the left, on the right-hand side of the screen. So we tried to keep everything off to the sides. We are working on replacing a lot of the admin functionality. So everything that you would normally see under the admin menu, the site menu, you know, we're starting to move those up into top-level features. So the default page management module, you know, we have started to add a lot of that functionality here. So you would just click pages. You're going to list, you know, all the pages on your site, whether they're visible or not, or included in the menu or not. Like the 404 error page, you know, it's a page you normally can't see. But if you would like to go to it, you know, down here you can click View, and then click, you know, 404 error page, and it will take you to that page, and you can customize it and tweak it as you would need. If you need to look at a child page, you know, you can go into submenus and see what pages are there, and you can go back to the previous menu. If you need to add a page, click Add, and we've kind of the same thing that we were trying to accomplish with the original advanced control panel. Only give the content manager a few fields. They don't need every single field in the application. They really just need a few. So they're just allowed to add the page name, the description, you know, if it's visible or not. If you want to add it as a child or before or after another page, we'll say after the home page. If you want to change the skin, right now it's just telling you that the default for this site is the inner skin. So if we leave it on the default settings, we will not be explicitly setting a skin or a container on this page. And if you change the site settings or the host settings, default skin and container, it will apply to all these pages. But if you know for sure you want the admin page, you know, and you want the, you know, H2 centered title, you would just add that in there, give it a name, click Add Page, and then we should be redirected right to that new page and be ready to add modules to it. If we go under modules, we get the same categories that you would normally get on the default control panel. The common is where the HTML is. You know, all is kind of a unruly list of modules that you usually never need. But what was actually suggested at the DNN Con event in Baltimore was top 10. So that was a feature that we added where we have a stored procedure that we run, and we look for the most utilized user profile pages. The module is really the most popular module on a default site. But as you know, you start building a site, installing modules, and using them, this list will be dynamic, and it'll show you the popular modules that are on that site. So if we wanted to add an HTML module and just give it a you know, test title, we'll set its container to the H2 centered. And now it's just saying there was a success. We are actually going to get rid of this screen completely and just have it automatically refresh. But right now it's actually pausing the refresh. Like if you knew you needed to add, you know, 5 modules to the page, you could go through here and, you know, do, you know, module number 2, add it, you know, say no, I don't want to refresh yet, come back in, and again say, you know, module number 3, and say we want you, I guess there's only a content pane, this is the admin skin, module number 3, and now we'll say, all right, we're done adding modules, now we need to add content, so we will refresh the page. And then it'll actually do a refresh, and we're not in edit mode, so we can't see the HTML modules. So now if we actually switch into the DNN edit mode, we should have all those modules on the page. There we go. and now we can start editing them through this. Settings is a shortcut to the current page settings. So if you click this, you'll get the brief settings for the page that we're on, test page. If you still need a setting that's in the full-blown DNN admin screen, you can go through, click Advanced Settings, and we'll redirect you to the standard page setting control. So you can still access everything. Nothing's out of reach, but hopefully the common things that everybody will use are exposed at the top. So yeah, that's super basic. Page admin, module admin. User administration is still very, very early. It basically, all the features that were in the advanced control panel are now in here. You can search for users. This site only has one user, so a search is a little crazy. If you need to edit that user, we kind of just give you a couple fields for their username, their email address. We don't actually have a link yet to the full user screen, which we need to do. That was something that we ran into the other day. If you need to add a new user, we just add a few fields. We're not yet rendering all the profile fields that will be added in soon. But the main feature is impersonation. So down here are our default actions. We've got edit a user, log in, which is the impersonation feature, and deleting a user. If we switch to impersonation, we get this anonymous user shows up. So you can actually impersonate an anonymous user or a real user. If we click the real user, it should give us an error that we don't have access to this page because we were just on a page. We were on the page settings control for test page, which this user can't see. But we still in the control panel detect that we're impersonated, and we allow you to then switch back to whatever user you were initially.
That's nice. You got several oohs and ahs over that one. Honestly, I hadn't noticed that or paid attention to the fact that there was impersonation into the control panel, but seeing that revert back to your user, I don't think I've seen any other impersonation system have that feature. That's pretty remarkable right there.
Yeah, the revert was like a eureka moment when I finally figured that one out, and that feature's been in the advanced control panel for, I don't know, 5-6 years. In DNN, I think it was 7.2 or 7.3, they actually changed how the control panel is rendered. They found out that the default control panel it's basically on every request the control panel is being added to the page, and then the control panel is determining if it should be shown or not. And that was a negative performance point on the load tests. So in 7.2, 7.3, the ability to revert kind of stopped working. But I went in, I submitted a pull request to kind of restore that old functionality, since it's something that it is nice if you need it. So basically what we have here is Configure Administration Suite, and we have an on-off switch. So if you are using impersonation and you need to revert from users who normally cannot see the control panel, you would need to turn this on. If we went through and turned this off, and we just did that same impersonation test, the control panel wouldn't render and you wouldn't be able to revert. But we love the feature so much that we figured, throwing a switch in here, if you use it, you can turn it on. We haven't actually gone through and done a performance analysis ourselves to see the performance penalty. This new control panel doesn't use any server-side components, so it really shouldn't affect the performance that bad. But we still just want to put a note just in case users are aware of what they're turning on, what they're not turning on. But yeah, even most of the time you've got two browsers open here. You're looking at content as different users, but sometimes you can't, or it's just nice to just switch really quick. And then even switching to an anonymous user, same thing. You're not logged in at all. You can navigate through the site. The control panel will always be there and allow you to come back as whoever you were.
It just dawned on me that with that feature in place, it might change how I do presentations with people. When I normally open either two Chromes, one in incognito and one not, I might not do that at all, and I might just swap back and forth like you just showed and stay in one browser.
Yep, no, it is. It's really nice, especially when you get a bug report, and a lot of the bugs sometimes are user specific. There's a weird setting in an account that you'll only see the issue under that user and not your user. So instead of asking people for passwords or any of that stuff, you can kind of just impersonate, see what they're doing, and then go back. I believe if we go into the event log, we should see. I seem to recall writing an event log that would say user was impersonated. But it looks like it's just the generic login records. But yeah.
Oliver, you've kind of gone through from kind of one side of the nBrane system all the way to the other side and talked control panel, and we've gone through a lot of good information here. Let me pause you for just a second and check in with Clint. Do we have online questions that we should kind of go back to either ask Oliver while he's still on topic, some of the things he just ran through quickly? If not, I've also jotted down a few that I want to run through.
I mean, the only one I can remember was when it was talking about the Keep Alive.
Mm-hmm.
I think Will mentioned putting the Keep Alive on the home page, and then Oliver says put it on any public page. Yeah, I don't know if that was the answer to the Keep Alive or if he's saying put the output caching on any public page. So I don't know. I just kind of got a little lost on that one.
So Oliver, does that question and clarification question kind of make sense? We were talking about the Keep Alive, and we asked you, would we turn off Keep Alive, or should we make the Keep Alive be the simple keepalive.aspx page, or should we make the Keep Alive page, a service like Pingdom is hitting, be the home page so it's always fresh? And I think you went to a different topic of making sure that cache is turned on for all these really good public pages. Maybe weigh in or clarify a little bit about how you're combining together Keep Alive.
Or were you saying put Keep Alive on multiple pages?
Oh, make Keep
You
Alive
wouldn't want to have multiple pages. I mean, you theoretically could if you knew you had 4 pages that 90% of your users were that was always their first visit to your site, and you had page output caching enabled. You would want, it wouldn't hurt to have a Keep Alive on all 3 of those URLs to make sure that page is always primed.
Talk about that before.
In that situation, would you lower the time increment on your Keep Alive and increase your cache so that maybe you're hitting it less frequently but hitting several, or it doesn't matter because you've already got it well cached?
If your cache time is 5 minutes, I would hit the page every 4.5 minutes. Just make sure that it's always primed. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. You could still hit it every minute, and then you get metrics over time. How that page is doing and how the response time is might vary based on load. If you tweet a bunch of URLs out or you're doing a promotion at the end of the month, you might notice that page slowing down. That corresponds to when you're doing social media marketing of your site.
Yep. All right, to run through some of the questions that I've jotted down and we've run through, question number 1 comes in from online. Someone says, where does the name nBrane come from? Because we're not talking about smart brains, we are talking about space, black holes, and Stephen Hawking brains, right?
Yep. It was something that my business partner came up with. It was a URL that he had, and it kind of just fit perfectly. But he's got the whole, in-depth story behind it. I unfortunately don't right here. But
all right, we'll ask next time we catch him.
You are on the right trail because it is all space and Stephen Hawking's and the N theory. It goes into all that, and unfortunately, I just don't have it right now. I'll definitely have it next.
And branes are part of string theory. They're the bubbles and the individual bubble items. P-branes, right? Sorry. So P-branes and nBrane.
So Oliver, we hour a lot. So I was going to ask who's in on this.
So it's just me and a friend, an attorney that I've had for a while, good buddy of mine. He handles the business side of things. I handle the software side of things, making sure the servers are up and you know, everyone's happy. So it's that's the we at the moment. We're looking to grow. You know, we've had a pretty good first year, and we're into our second, so things are looking pretty good.
So you're being the DNN surgeon might become a practice, and you'd have several other surgeons and PAs with you, right?
Yep, that's the plan. I also have another question here from Will that revert is difficult to pull off without exposing a security hole. And while that is true, everything is encrypted. You know, there's no easy way unless you know, somebody gets access to your web config. That'd really be the only way someone could generate a fake revert request. So hopefully that answers that question as well.
And to that point, if you're concerned about it, you're able to turn off that feature so that it's not running. And if it's turned off or disabled, even if it was spoofed, it's not active, right?
Yep.
So talk a little bit about your path there for your CDN server locations. I remember checking in at one point and seeing a number, and now you mentioned, I think, that you're up to, you said 50 locations?
I think it's around 50, yeah. I would just have to double check.
So how has that growth gone? Was that difficult to go through and start to set up multiple locations, or did you use a partner to grow that many locations quickly?
No, we have a CDN partner that manages all the data center edge locations, so it's pretty nice. They spin up new locations as demand changes and growth changes.
What about combinations? Sometimes you can have too much of a good thing, and because you've plugged way too many things into, let's say, a surge protector, you now have defeated the purpose, and you are hurting yourself and the surge protector because you have 16 things plugged into 4 outlets. Are there issues combining, or do you have advice on setting up nBrane and using it and using your CDN, but then also having something like Cloudflare sitting in front, or one of the other CDN services that also provide security benefits and protections, or is it not recommended to combine services on top of services?
I mean, it's definitely not the best to have multiple CDNs. Like if your entire site is already powered by Cloudflare, you know, it's a very similar product that they're offering. It's just DNS-based, not DNN-based. Our product will still allow you to have a lot more granular control over cache. You know, you've got hooks that your content managers can be exposed to invalidate that cache. With Cloudflare, that's a lot more difficult. If you have an error and you have I forget what it is, it's like the Cloud Ray ID or whatever their error ID is, there's really nowhere to search for that and look to see what was going on. At least not in the Cloudflare dashboards that I've looked into. But with that said, I mean, we still have clients that are using Cloudflare specifically for the security features, and they have all their CDN traffic routed through us because the performance is just a million times better. One thing you won't get with Cloudflare is basically multiple URLs to load your site. One of the other big issues when you're first loading your site is I think browsers now are limited to like 10 or 12 concurrent requests. So if your site has, you know, 48 requests to load, your browser's limited to, let's say, 12 requests, it's going to load 4 batches of 12 files, and it's going to wait for those 12 to finish before it starts another 12. So it's going to take the computer longer to download all the files versus if you've got that split up under 2 or 3 URLs. So if you've got your HTML coming from one, your images coming from another, and then some of your HTML images that your users are uploading coming from like a third, all your files are going to hopefully load within that first batch of 12 files. So if you've got, let's say 4 servers that are running your site, 4 different CDNs, if you've got a URL just for CSS files, a URL just for image files, and a URL just for JavaScript files, and then your server that's running HTML, your request is going to load pretty much instantly because you've got 4 different URLs that are opening up a lot more concurrent requests to that browser. Now with CNAME, you can still point all those to the same CDN service, but the browser will still think they're separate, and it'll still allow you to load the page much quicker.
And nBrane CDN side does do that, so it splits them up. So there's a CSS, a JavaScript, and an image all separated?
There are settings basically hidden in the background right now. We don't expose those settings in the UI, but if that's something that you request, it is something that we can change. We can generate the additional URLs, and then the module will pick up off that, and it'll start serving the content that way.
Oliver, do you have any clients that are using Mandeep's live content module in your caching suite? And the reason that I ask is because I forth with Mandeep and his team for a while, and it was just, he said, finally he asked me, are you using Cloudflare? And I said, yes. He said, you need to take it off. So I was like, if I want live content to work, then, the bots are getting these. So do you have anybody using that module, and are you having any issues with it?
Unfortunately, no, at least not that I know of. No one's reported any issues yet. But I mean, if you've got a site, if you've got a dev site that's running it that we can play around with, I'd be happy to take a look. Lots of times it's a cross-site scripting issue where you just need to open up on the CDN and it's allowed to talk to your server, through client requests. Lots of times now browsers, when they're loading content and doing AJAX calls on different domains, they're running into, security features that are preventing those requests. So sometimes it's just a really quick tweak of a config in either Cloudflare or in IIS to allow that request to be marked as valid. And then sometimes, it's a small tweak in the DNN module itself. So like if you had a source code license, we'd be able to go and do a lot more in-depth set of troubleshooting and maybe go and suggest a fix to Mandeep's. So then instead of just telling people they don't support Cloudflare, that now they're Cloudflare and also nBrane ready.
Just to share there, Clint, any of the configurations that we've had to make for the instance that we've been running, where there are dynamic pages and dynamic content, article modules and news articles, X1 Pro modules that we've built, anything that we've had to do has no settings specific to nBrane and more just cache-specific settings for the individual pages so that they recognize query strings. They build other incremented versions based on the specific dynamic content. So has been, from a user perspective, very easy to set up and work through, checking off the right boxes to make sure they load right.
And like the Ventrian modules, we've added a lot of the default query strings that Scott generates as default variations in the nBrane output caching provider. And if there's a handful of query string IDs that Mandeep's is using, we'd be happy to add those as well. So their modules are just supported out of the box. It's just a matter of identifying them and like Brian said, adding the configuration right now.
So Clint, do we have any more online questions? I got one. I had two more myself. What you got there?
I'm curious, does his product enable web farms for like the community edition?
That's the primary purpose. All of these features that we've been looking at are things you had either in corporate edition in older DNNs or now in 8. They're there also in both, but web farm support, which is traditionally in corporate edition, is now here available, and backwards all the way down to DNN 5.6.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, how about site groups?
Site groups is not something that we've looked into yet, but it is on the very long to-do list of rainy day projects.
Yeah, I don't think that's real high-hanging fruit. I think it's a fairly simple interface, but thanks.
Well,
yeah, what we want to do is like cross-portal module sharing. So like right now, if you come in here and you want to copy a module, you're only allowed to access the current portal. So what we want to do is with portal groups, we want to add another drop-down for portals, and then we would give you the selection of all the portals in that group, and we'd allow you to do cross-module sharing within those groups, stuff like that's what we're looking at.
Awesome. Well, all of that's kind of a segue into one of my next questions is what's on your roadmap for the near future for nBrane, different components, and then separately for the control panel? What can people look forward to?
So the Administration Suite is on GitHub. You can also get to this URL from the nBrane site. And we've been trying to keep our roadmap on GitHub in the issue tracker. So as issues come in, we're tagging them with a version. Right now we're on version 0.1.3. The next major release would be 0.2.0, and we're looking at enhancing the page URL module to allow you to see all the URLs on a page, and then add custom 301 redirects and 302 redirects. The opening page menu items in a new tab. So if you click on here and you want to open one of these in a new tab, these aren't actually links, so there's no way to do that. So we need to convert all these items into links. And then actually the UI for page URLs, that's the first enhancement. This enhancement was basically when adding a page, we want to, there should be an image, I think, in here. But yeah, I think this is a duplicate of the other one, actually. Display the page URL and edit page. So he wants to see the URL. And the bottom issue in here is the UI for managing all page URLs.
So if people want to participate and throw out suggestions and ideas, if they get connected on GitHub, they can post ideas and suggestions there for everyone.
Yep. I think we've got an 0.2 release, an 0.3 release, and then like an 0.5 release, which is going to add the responsive UI. Right now the control panel isn't responsive. It's kind of made for a screen. So we want to make it collapse down and work on a mobile touch device. Nice. And then anything else, like you were saying, any other bugs, enhancement, suggestions, features, something you think might be cool, add it in there, and we'll throw it in the version, or have a quick discussion to get a little bit more information about it.
How about the Performance Suite?
The Performance Suite. So that is all the core features are basically done. We have another screen that we're planning on adding, which will just give you an overview of all the various other performance settings that are buried in DNN. So we'll give you, the light, medium, heavy cache setting. We'll give you the schedule. Maybe like we were thinking a button to set the recommended scheduled task intervals. Some of the tasks are running too often for low traffic sites. We just had a suggestion come in the other day for if you have the Webfarm product installed and you also have the page output caching product installed and you clear the page output cache, that action is only run on your current server. So in a multi-server environment, you'd have to manually go and validate the cache on each node in your farm. So in the latest version, we check to see if Webfarm's enabled. We check to see if there's multiple nodes in the farm that are online, and if so, we issue a call to clear the output cache to all online nodes. So it synchronizes that event across nodes. We're really looking into just supporting more modules and getting it on more sites at the moment, and making sure the features that we have are pretty solid.
Excellent, excellent. Last question I was going to have for you was to kind of bring up on screen for us the licensing page. So I know you mentioned it in the beginning, but let's kind of leave folks with a description of what your breakdowns are and how they can combine them together. And maybe go full screen or zoom in so we can see it on bigger screen.
All right, so yeah, the products are all available individually. To see the pricing, you need to actually add them into the cart. So I'm just going to have to go through and pretend like I'm going to buy each of these. So output caching is now $75 a year, and that's per install. So that's a really great, cheap way to really, increase the performance of your site. The CDN product starts at $25 a month, and that includes 50 gigs of bandwidth. Additional usage is 15 cents per gigabyte. And then the Webfarm product is $500 per node. So in order to run a Webfarm, you need 2 nodes. So the base price is $1,000 a year. If you go up to 10 nodes, you're at $5,000 a year. And then anything above that, we basically ask you to contact us and let us know what you're doing, what you need, and we've got an enterprise license and a couple other licenses that are available a la carte based on your individual needs for the project.
Excellent. All right. Well, we are just cresting over 8 o'clock here, which normally becomes our time to start wrapping up sessions and start talking about the local watering hole that we're going to head out to. Oliver, we've had a great evening here running through what I've seen other people be excited. I know myself, I'm excited about this product and the services here. I think just listening to folks in the room, we've seen things that we've been excited about. We're hearing some folks from the peanut gallery saying, "Yay, Oliver! This is a pretty fantastic service." That across the board, whether we're talking about community participation and stepping in there to make and remake an awesome control panel, updated again for modern DNN, to all of these fantastic services, from just any one of these by themselves being worth their weight in gold. Output caching individually, CDN services individually, DNN Smart CDN services, if nothing else, is stellar on its own. Webfarm down to the masses and down to community editions, fantastic. You put any one of those 2 together, or 3 together, and you've got a home run of services that were never possible before. So very exciting stuff to see here. Clint, do we have any other questions or chiming in items as we wrap up?
I'm trying to talk Mark into writing a blog. He said he installed the during the session.
All right. You know, that'd be nice. We get a install and first-hand use impression of the administration suite. That'd be nice. All right, folks. Well, let's first off say thank you very much to Oliver Hine for agreeing to come here today. To everybody who joined us online, thank you very much for participating. We'll have a recap of tonight's session up online shortly. We will have a version of the video recording. It did stop on us a few times, so we'll see how the quality we have there and what interruptions we have in it. So we'll have that up online with also, of course, links to nBrane, links to Oliver's site, links to the administration suite, and info on how you can get a hold of all of these to download and get running. Our next Southern Fried event will be, again, always the third Thursday of each month, but looks like at the moment that's going to be the 18th of August is our next session. We are locking down our current speaker. If you're online or watching and you're scrambling to try and present something to the DNN community, reach out to David, myself, or Clint, and we'll get you keyed up. Otherwise, we'll let everyone know soon who we've twisted by the elbow to get them to come and talk to us for next month. All right. Well, thanks very much, everybody. This ends tonight's episode. We are going to, as we said, hit the local watering hole and do some more celebrations. Everybody, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next month.